I remember that night as clearly as if it happened yesterday. The air at Portland International Airport was sharp and cold, carrying that faint smell of coffee and jet fuel. I had driven my daughter, Caroline, for what I believed would be just another business trip. Nothing seemed unusual. She looked confident, polished as always in her navy blazer, her rolling suitcase clicking softly across the tile. My grandson, Ethan, only 7 years old, clung to my hand the whole time. He was a quiet child, always observing, always thinking. That evening, though, something in his eyes unsettled me. He watched his mother check in, his little jaw tight, his fingers pressing into my palm. 3 days, Mom, Caroline said cheerfully as she adjusted her bag. Take care of Ethan and don't forget his medicine. I smiled, pretending everything was normal. But Ethan wouldn't let go of me. When she bent down to kiss him goodbye, he didn't move. She left with a quick wave, and we stood there watching her disappear through the security gate. As we walked toward the parking lot, Ethan suddenly pulled on my hand so hard that I almost lost balance. His voice trembled as he whispered, "Grandma, please don't go home tonight." I froze in the middle of the dim terminal hallway, my heart skipping a beat. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" He looked up at me, eyes wide and terrified. "I heard Mom this morning," he said, barely breathing. "She was talking about us." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. Maybe it was the echo of the parking garage, or maybe I was simply too tired to understand. But Ethan's small hand tightened around mine again, his knuckles white. "She said something about a gas leak," he continued, his voice trembling. "She said everything had to look like an accident." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. My daughter? My Caroline? The same girl I had raised alone after her father passed away 20 years ago? I wanted to believe this was a child's misunderstanding, some wild mix-up born from curiosity. But when I looked into his eyes, I saw something that left no room for denial. Fear. Real fear. "Are you sure that's what you heard?" I asked quietly. He nodded, tears forming at the corners of his eyes. "She said, make sure it looks natural, and the gas line must not fail. Grandma, I don't want to go home." I stood there, frozen between disbelief and instinct. Every part of me wanted to defend my daughter, to protect her image in my mind. Yet my body moved on its own. I squeezed Ethan's hand and whispered, "Okay, sweetheart, we won't go home tonight." Without another thought, I guided him toward the car. The night outside was darker than usual, the air colder. I turned the ignition, my heart pounding, headlights cutting through the fog as we pulled away from the airport. Ethan leaned his head against the seat, still clutching his dinosaur backpack. "Are we safe now, Grandma?" he whispered. I looked at him through the rearview mirror and forced a steady tone. "We will be, Ethan. I promise." We drove in silence for miles, the soft hum of the tires the only sound between us. I didn't know where we were going, just away from the house that suddenly felt like a trap. I stopped at a gas station on the edge of the city. The fluorescent lights flickered weakly overhead, casting long shadows on the cold pavement. I bought a cup of watery coffee, more for something to hold than to drink. When I returned to the car, Ethan had fallen asleep, his face calm at last. That's when my phone rang. Caroline's name lit up the screen. My stomach twisted. "Hi, Mom," she said, her voice smooth and casual. "Where are you? You should have been home by now." I froze. How did she know we weren't there? "Oh, we stopped for dinner," I lied, forcing a light tone. Ethan was hungry. There was a pause on the line, just long enough to make my heart thud harder. "I see," she said slowly. "Well, my flight got canceled. I'm on my way back home now. Don't rush, just enjoy your dinner." I felt the blood drain from my face. Caroline never made careless mistakes. She checked flight schedules twice, always confirmed details. Her voice was calm, too calm. When I hung up, the silence in the car felt suffocating. I stared out into the empty road, the reflection of my trembling hands on the windshield. That wasn't just a check-in call. It was a test. She was trying to see if we were home. That's when I knew Ethan was right. My daughter wasn't who I thought she was anymore. I didn't drive home that night. My instincts screamed that stepping inside that house would be the last thing I ever did. Instead, I took the long road toward the old part of town, where streetlights flickered and storefronts sat closed behind dusty glass. There was one person I knew I could still trust: Mr. Raymond Holt, the night security guard at the apartment complex where we used to live years ago. He was a quiet man, steady as a clock, who had known our family since Caroline was a teenager. If anyone would believe me, it was him. When we arrived, the clock on the dashboard showed almost midnight. I'd parked down the street and carried a half-asleep Ethan up the narrow walkway to the guard booth. The small office glowed softly from an old lamp, and there he was reading a crossword, just like always. "Mrs. Walker," he said, startled when he saw me. "What on earth are you doing here at this hour?" "I need your help, Ray," I whispered, glancing over my shoulder, "and I don't have much time to explain." Within minutes, we were inside his modest backroom apartment. Ethan sipped the hot cocoa Ray made while I told him everything: the phone call, the documents, the whisper about the gas leak. Ray listened silently, his brows furrowing deeper with every word. "Do you realize what you're saying, Eleanor?" he finally asked. "I do," I said, my voice shaking. "My daughter wants us dead, and I need to prove it before she tries again." Ray leaned back in his chair, his face pale beneath the dim yellow light. "Eleanor, if what you're saying is true, you can't go back there. You should call the police right now." "I will," I said, "but without proof they'll think delusional. Caroline's a respected marketing executive. I'm a 70-year-old widow with a frightened grandchild and a story that sounds insane." Ray rubbed a hand over his chin, nodding slowly. "So what are you planning to do?" "I need to go back," I whispered. "Just for a few minutes. I'll find something concrete: documents, phone records, anything that shows what she's been planning." Ethan's head shot up from the couch. "No, Grandma, please don't. She might come back." His voice cracked with panic, tears glistening in his eyes. I knelt in front of him, holding his cold little hands in mine. "I'll be careful, sweetheart. I promise. You'll stay here with Mr. Holt, and I'll be back before the sun comes up." Ray sighed deeply, then reached into a drawer and pulled out an old prepaid cell phone. "Use this instead of your own. It can't be tracked. 1 ring means you're okay. 2 rings means trouble. Got it?" I nodded, slipping the small phone into my coat pocket. 20 minutes, he said firmly. "If you're not out by then, I'm calling the police." My hands trembled as I zipped up my jacket. "Then let's pray I'll be out in 15. The streets were silent as I drove toward my house, the headlights cutting through a heavy mist that hung low over the neighborhood. Every passing minute felt heavier, like I was driving straight into the heart of something I wasn't ready to face. I parked a block away and walked the rest of the distance, careful not to make a sound. The porch light was off, the curtains drawn. Everything looked ordinary, and that was what terrified me most. Using my spare key, I slipped in through the back door. The familiar scent of lavender cleaner mixed with something else, metallic, sharp, almost chemical. I tried not to breathe too deeply. The kitchen clock ticked steadily, counting the seconds as I crept down the hallway. My daughter's office door was locked, but I'd prepared for that. From my pocket, I pulled out a thin hairpin, an old trick I'd learned years ago when Caroline used to lock herself in her room as a teenager. My fingers trembled, but after a few tense seconds, the latch clicked open. The office was spotless, every file neatly stacked. I started searching through drawers, moving slowly so nothing would look disturbed. In the third drawer, beneath a pile of marketing folders, I found a red envelope marked private. Inside were several bank statements, names I didn't recognize, large transfers to someone called Mark Sanders. At the bottom of the pile was a copy of my own life insurance policy, annotated in Caroline's handwriting with payment dates and notes like verify clause and gas timing. My stomach dropped. It was true. Every word Ethan had said. And then, a noise downstairs, the soft creak of the front door opening. My blood ran cold. She was home. For a moment, I couldn't move. My body locked up, my mind screaming for me to hide, to run, to vanish. The faint murmur of voices drifted up the staircase, 2 of them. A man's deep tone and a woman's voice I knew better than my own. "Is everything clear, Mark?" Caroline called from below. "Yeah," he replied. "The house is empty." My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned off my flashlight and pressed myself behind the office door, praying the floorboards wouldn't betray me. From my hiding place, I could hear them moving through the kitchen, opening drawers, footsteps soft but deliberate. "It has to look like it happened while they were asleep," Caroline said. Her voice was steady, almost businesslike. "No broken locks, no mess. I'll say I was out of town the whole time." Mark laughed quietly, cold but effective. A sour taste filled my mouth. My own daughter, my flesh and blood, was calmly planning my death, as if it were a part of her job. Then came a pause. The sound of footsteps on the stairs. They were coming up. I glanced toward the window, my only possible escape. My hip ached just thinking about it, but staying wasn't an option. I waited until the footsteps reached the hallway, then silently unlatched the window and swung one leg out. A voice stopped me cold. "Are you sure no one's here?" Mark asked. Caroline's answer came like ice. "No one. And by tomorrow morning there'll be nothing left to find." That was enough. I pushed myself out the window and dropped into the darkness below. The fall knocked the air out of me. I hit the grass behind the house hard, pain shooting through my hip and shoulder. For a few seconds I couldn't breathe. But survival has its own kind of power. I forced myself up, limping toward the back gate as quietly as I could. Behind me, light flickered in the upstairs window. Someone was moving through the office. I didn't dare look back. My only thought was to get to the road, to anyone who could help. When I finally reached the main street, I pulled out the prepaid phone and dialed 911. My voice trembled as I explained what had happened, every detail tumbling out in broken sentences. The dispatcher hesitated, asking the same question twice. "Ma'am, are you saying your daughter is trying to kill you?" "Yes," I said, my voice breaking, "and she's not alone." I sent them the photos I'd taken of the insurance documents before escaping. Something in those images must have convinced them, because within minutes, sirens began to rise in the distance. As the first police car arrived, I pointed back toward my street. "There's a man inside Ray Holt. He came looking for me. Please save him." The officer nodded, speaking into his radio. I sank onto the curb, clutching Ethan's backpack to my chest, praying I wasn't too late to save my oldest friend. It felt like hours before I saw Ray again. 2 officers helped him out of the house, limping, with a bloody cut across his forehead. The relief that flooded through me made my knees give out. "They got the man," an officer said. "Mark Sanders. Your daughter wasn't there when we arrived. She must fled through the back." Fled. The word echoed in my mind like a warning bell. Caroline was free and she knew we were alive. My chest tightened. "Ethan," I whispered. "She'll go after Ethan." The officers wasted no time. We sped back to Ray's apartment building, sirens slicing through the quiet streets. I jumped out of the patrol car before it had even stopped moving, running down the narrow corridor toward the back apartment. The door was still closed, just as I'd left it. For a split second, I felt hope. Then I noticed the lock scratched, slightly bent. "Ethan," I called softly, pressing my ear to the door. Silence. An officer forced it open. The small apartment was dark, the blanket on the sofa tossed aside. No sign of Ethan. On the table sat a torn piece of notebook paper, held down by a glass of water. My hands shook as I unfolded it. "Grandma, Mom found me. She says you're lying. She says she needs to protect me from you. I'm scared. Help me." The words blurred as my eyes filled with tears. My daughter had taken him, and this time she wouldn't let either of us escape. The hours that followed blurred into a haze of flashing lights, police radios, and paperwork. My body felt numb, but my mind refused to rest. Every minute that passed without news of Ethan felt like another nail in my chest. The detectives worked fast. They placed alerts on every road leaving Portland, checked highway cameras, and even contacted airport security. But Caroline was clever. She had planned this for months, maybe years. Ray sat beside me at the precinct, his arm wrapped in gauze, his voice calm but firm. "He's a smart kid, Eleanor. He'll leave a sign." I wanted to believe that. I needed to. It was near dawn when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. My heart leapt. I answered instantly. "Grandma?" The tiny whisper nearly broke me. "It's me." "Ethan, oh thank God. Where are you, sweetheart? Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," he said softly. "Mom's asleep. We're at a house near a lake. I saw a sign. It said something like Lakeview Farm, mile 142. There's a barn behind it. I'm hiding there." I gestured wildly for the officers to start tracing the call. "Ethan, listen to me," I said as calmly as I could. "Stay hidden. Don't make any noise. The police are coming." He hesitated, his voice trembling. "She's not the same, Grandma. She keeps saying weird things. She says you want to hurt us." "Don't believe her, my love," I whispered. "Just hold on a little longer. I'm coming for you." Then I heard the sound of footsteps, a door creaking open, and the line went dead. The convoy of patrol cars sped down the narrow country road, red and blue lights slicing through the early morning fog. My heart hammered against my ribs with every turn. I sat in the backseat of the lead car beside Ray, clutching the small stuffed dinosaur Ethan had left behind. When we reached mile 142, a dirt road curved toward a quiet property beside a still lake. A faded sign read Lakeview Farm. The air smelled of pine and dew, but beneath it all was something darker, a sense of dread. The police parked at a distance to avoid alerting Caroline. The lead detective turned to me. "Stay in the car until we secure the scene. We'll bring your grandson out safely." But I couldn't stay seated. Through the windshield, I saw movement on the farmhouse porch, a flash of blonde hair, a small figure held tightly in front of it. "Caroline. And Ethan." "Don't come closer," Caroline screamed, her voice raw and uneven. In her right hand she held a revolver. With her left she gripped Ethan's shoulder. "If anyone moves, I'll shoot." "Caroline," I shouted, stepping out from behind the patrol car despite the detective's protest. "You don't have to do this." She turned her gaze toward me, eyes wild and red-rimmed. "You took everything from me, Mother. Dad's money, my life, my freedom. You always controlled everything." The words cut deep. I stepped forward slowly. "I never wanted to control you, sweetheart. I wanted to protect you. I loved you the best I knew how." "Lear," she cried, shaking, "all you ever did was decide for me." "Then decide for yourself now," I said softly. "Put down the gun and let Ethan go." For one trembling second I saw something shift behind her eyes, hesitation, confusion, maybe even grief. And that's when Ethan moved. With sudden courage he bit her arm hard, twisting free. The gun fired a deafening crack that echoed across the lake, but the shot went wide. Officers surged forward, tackling Caroline to the ground as I ran to Ethan. He was shaking but alive. I pulled him into my arms, sobbing against his hair as the morning sun rose behind us. "It's over," I whispered. "You're safe now, my love. You're safe." The next few days felt like waking from a long, terrible dream. Caroline was taken into custody that same morning, charged with attempted murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Her partner, Mark Sanders, agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence, confirming every dark detail we already knew. Ethan and I stayed at the hospital for observation. He had no physical injuries, but the emotional wounds were deep. Sometimes he'd wake in the night screaming, convinced he could still hear the sound of that gunshot echoing through the trees. I would hold him until he fell asleep again, whispering the same promise over and over, "You're safe. Grandma's here." The police and social workers arranged for us to move temporarily into a quiet coastal town a few hours north. Ray came with us for the first week, helping settle us in before returning to Portland. He called every night, always ending with the same words, "That boy's got more courage than most grown men I've known." He was right. Weeks passed. Caroline's trial made headlines for a few days, then faded like all tragic stories do. The court appointed me as Ethan's guardian. We began family therapy, slow, careful steps toward healing. One evening, while I was tucking him into bed, Ethan looked up at me and asked the question I had dreaded since the beginning. "Grandma, why did Mom want to hurt us? Didn't she love us?" I sat beside him, my throat tightening. How could I explain something so twisted, so impossible to understand, even for me? "Your mom was sick, sweetheart," I said softly. "Not the kind of sickness you can see or touch. It was in her heart and her mind. She let anger and greed grow where love used to be. That sickness made her forget who she was." He stared at the blanket, silent for a long moment. "Will she ever get better?" "I hope so," I answered honestly. "But even if she doesn't, you will. Because you told the truth. You were brave when it mattered most." He smiled faintly, his eyelids heavy with sleep. "You believed me when no one else would." "Yes, darling," I whispered, brushing his hair back. "And I always will." After he drifted off, I sat there in the quiet room, watching the slow rise and fall of his chest. That night, I finally understood the full weight of what had happened, not just the betrayal, but the miracle that followed. Ethan had saved us both, not only from danger but from silence, from blindness, from the kind of love that refuses to see the truth. As dawn broke through the curtains, painting the room with gold light, I made myself a promise to spend whatever years I had left teaching Ethan that courage and kindness will always matter more than fear. And if you're hearing this now, remember his words, the ones that changed everything. Grandma, please believe me. Sometimes the smallest voice is the one that saves your life.